but I want to start in the AFC Championship game, Furman, because it, to me, was the far more surprising outcome. Not only the result, but the way in which we got there. 21-3, the Bengals were down. They scored late in the first half, and then you had a situation where it looked like the Chiefs were going to go right back down the field, at minimum get a field goal. They get nothing. It's 21-10 at the half. 18-point comeback. The Bengals not only win, they win it in overtime, effectively shut down the Kansas City Chief offense in the second half. How stunning was the way that this one played out?
Mind-boggling. I mean, when you look at the way Kansas City moved the ball early on in that football game, you thought the sky was the limit in terms of how many points that they were going to be able to generate against the Bengals defense that really had no answers. And it was one play at the end of the first half where maybe the momentum started to shift a little bit. You wonder what the Chiefs were doing in terms of a sense of urgency. You're not throwing to the end zone, thinking Tyreek Hill could get outside a defender and give them a little bit more cushion heading into the break. But 21-10 at halftime, very similar to the 28-17 lead they had at Cincinnati. But for the second time this season, Kansas City musters a grand total of 3 points after halftime, whether it's the Bengals' defensive adjustments or the Chiefs just imploding. The body language was the most stunning thing for me. Patrick Mahomes appeared to be playing in a fog. Nobody could make a big play. And even when they intercepted Joe Burrow, you kept going, all right, this is where Kansas City's able to flip the switch. They're going to find another gear, and they're going to be able to create a little bit of separation before they punch their ticket to the Super Bowl with yet another AFC Championship victory at home. But that wasn't the case. And I think the Bengals deserve a ton of credit. I mean, Joe Burrow didn't have to do anything magnificent in the passing game to get them over the hump in that contest, but he showed his elusiveness in the pocket, scrambled for first downs, was able to get away from Chris Jones on another pivotal situation. And when you consider the teams that had an 18-point lead or more so far this season in the NFL, I believe the stat I saw, Clay, 115-1 going into yesterday. So the Chiefs became only the second team to squander a lead of that particular margin, joining the Indianapolis Colts, who did so on Monday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens earlier in the season.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about that collapse by the Colts, which, by the way, sorry, Colts fans, would have had you in the playoffs if you just won that one.
That it would have.
Now, other side of the equation, I know the line went off at like 3.5, and the Rams had to come back from a 17-7 deficit. Kyle Shanahan has difficulty closing again. Might be the final game that we ever see Jimmy Garoppolo play as a San Francisco 49er quarterback. What stood out to you about the NFC Championship game?
I think the biggest thing was, to your point, that Kyle Shanahan, again, in a game of that magnitude in the fourth quarter, had none of the answers. We can go to the Super Bowl against Kansas City, where the 49ers completely bogged down. We can point our fingers at Jimmy Garoppolo and an offensive line that didn't block, but going all the way back to Kyle Shanahan's time as offensive coordinator in Atlanta, I mean, look at how they finished that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. For whatever reason, he appears to be a deer in headlights when it gets into crunch time, getting away from some of the bread and butter. I mean, Deebo Samuel didn't touch the football one time in the final 12-plus minutes or thereabouts in that contest. When the game is 17-17 and the Rams have all the momentum, they go 3 and out. And I think they took 30 seconds off the clock tops. When they got the ball back down 20-17, I don't think there was anybody, including myself, that believed that the 49ers were going to be able to march into field goal range because they hadn't shown much of that big play potential over the final 10 to 12 minutes. And it's staggering because you look at all of the things that went wrong for the 49ers. You can point it at Jaquiski Tartt dropping an interception that was basically right in his chest, where Matthew Stafford arm punted to him. The 15-yard penalty that prolonged, the Rams drive that gave them a little bit of momentum early on. Just a confluence of errors for a 49ers team that really didn't have that kind of margin to work around. But the reality of it is, I think Jimmy Garoppolo gets a raw deal on a variety of fronts because it's not just him that led to San Francisco losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. It wasn't just Jimmy, the reason that they weren't able to punch their ticket to Los Angeles for the second time in 2 weeks if they'd have returned to SoFi. But Jimmy, to your point, I mean, this organization went up in the draft, traded a lot of draft capital to get Trey Lance, and I think they're going to try and allow him to have every opportunity to win the job in camp. And Jimmy will find himself, whether it's a Denver, Pittsburgh, or somewhere else. I think Garoppolo needs to go to a new landing spot where they'll actually appreciate what he can do. As not a top 10 quarterback in the league, in my opinion, but still definitely top 15 and much better than a lot of options and maybe even if the salary cap wasn't a constraint, the perfect fit to lead your Tennessee Titans.
No, I do not want him. He's Ryan Tannehill part 2.